Everybody, it is 586, week number 5. And there is so much that we could talk about in the big topic around collaboration. A lot of it I've been kind of leading up to this because there's just so much this week for you to dive into. But the idea that these devices that we have as educators and that our students have as students um, allow all of us to collaborate on things in ways we just couldn't imagine even 20 years ago. Which, by the way, 20 years ago is 2004. 20 years ago feels like so long ago, but 2004 doesn't feel like that long ago. Um, so, part of it, I want to actually start with our discussion board. It's a quote from Jen Wagner, an old ed tech friend. Don't just be a sponge, be a watering can. And so, part of at what you're doing in this master's program is transitioning from being a sponge, soaking up all the info, learning all the things, to shifting into more of a leadership role where you're actually helping build community and sharing out what you've learned, sharing out what you're trying. And that's part of how I think last week's PLN project, as strange as Twitter or X is these days, the idea that you are there to learn, to collaborate, and to show up in a leadership space is so important. If you try that, by the way, and you're like, yeah, Twitter's just, it's a different thing, it is. I wonder if maybe finding a few podcasts around educational technology might be a good way to continue to not as much connect, although you can certainly like respond to any education podcast. But finding some of those that aren't, sponsored by whatever or the whatever company podcast, um, like those are good and kind of in their own ways, but as kind of a way to have that PLN where you're continuing to learn, finding like the Bedley Brothers podcast. John Spencer, you saw his sketch note one. He has a great podcast, Spencer Ideas. I think that's what he's still calling it. I have my own, Bill Selleck Talks, where I talk, and my name's Bill Selleck. These ones that are not necessarily like the Ed Surge podcast, hosted by someone who's been in the classroom for a year. Um, those are great and kind of in their own ways, but what I'm thinking of is like ways where we can really um, get more ideas, thinking about the latest things coming out, particularly around like how do we sort through AI in education? It's changing so rapidly, um, and so many schools are just like shut it down, right? So like Ken Shelton's book and delinears around the ethics and implementation of AI in education, stuff like that's going to be really important to read and then connect with and keep learning from those people on whatever platform it's going to be. Um, Stuff like that is going to help you continue to learn and grow. And getting back to that discussion board, how are you going to show up in a way where you can be that watering can, where you can share with others, where you have your ideas? Is it going to be, are you going to continue a blog? Are you going to have your own website? Are you going to hop on some social media? Maybe start a podcast? Um, Lots of ways where you can show up in the leadership space with this master's in ed tech. Your assignment goes into three um, very specific tools that you're going to lean into as kind of the student. There's kind of the student part of the assignment and then the teacher part of the assignment. So the student part, the three tools are going to be Padlet, Google Maps, Google Slides. Padlet, by the way, is my recommendation if you're no longer able to use Flip. Microsoft Flip or Flipgrid is now gone. It's part of Microsoft Teams. So unless your school has a Microsoft account, you do not have a Flipgrid or a Flip account anymore. Padlet will let you do that with video, so this is going to be a great chance to use that. This assignment's going to be just really simple, just like a post-it note, like a sticky note on a website. So on the week 5 page, and then also in our in the weekly announcement, I'll give you a link to a Padlet just for this course, and just follow the directions on that. It's going to be like a really simple thing just to kind of learn the tool. I'm going to jump to the third one, Google Slides. I guess it can be whatever order we want, but it says number 3 in the assignment on Canvas. Google Slides, the idea is you can share it with people. Anyone with a link can view, anyone with a link can comment, anyone with a link can edit. And that's where the magic is. Share that link with colleagues, share that link at a conference, and anyone can edit it. The idea being everything in Google Drive has a specific link, which means everything is a web page. So do you remember the days of wikis? Back when like Wikipedia was one of tens of thousands of wikis? It was like a magical time because anyone could edit a page if they were invited or if it was just open. And while we're kind of used to Wikipedia as the thing that it is now, when it was first hitting classrooms, like it was absolutely cutting edge. That an entire class could come in and collaborate on this one thing together. And that continues with Google Slides because when you share a link with someone, it's a link in a web page, which means it's a web page. So you're essentially creating like a custom website for every Google Doc you share with students. You're creating a custom website for every Google slide deck you share with your students. It might feel like a bit of a stretch, but it technically is a new website that you're creating because it has a unique web link. You're accessing it in a web browser, right? So I think if you can shift your brain away from being like, oh, Google Slides is a slide deck is like PowerPoint, but Google's version. No. It's actually a website that is linkable, that is clickable, that can link to other websites, which are Google Docs, which are Google Slides, which are images, which are Google Maps, all kinds of things. And then suddenly you're able to create this really like robust interlocking of resources for your students. So start to think about Google Slides kind of in that term. Everyone's going to create their own slide. Really simple. Google Maps is, I think, actually the one that's most easily overlooked, but arguably the most powerful tool of all the ones listed in week 5. This is because Google My Maps is the stuff. That's where everything is. So Google My Maps, it takes a few clicks to get to it because they just want to kind of direct you to like finding the business, clicking on the business, getting that advertising, getting directions to the business, getting reviews of the business. But you can actually go into My Maps, and this is where, like, if you have an Android phone, you can like, it'll keep track of like your bike rides if you want, but it can also be just a specific map around a specific thing. So the thing I'm going to share is be a map of the U.S. It's going to be, does it tell me what I have to do? Give me just a moment to double check. Google Maps. You're going to indicate your name on a place mark title, and write in the city or country location you've chosen. So you're going to just share like a place you like to go. I would recommend some food you like. Like, let's get some good restaurants saved and bookmarked. So I might pick something from like Washington D.C. when I went to go visit my sister, like the bagel place. Call Your Mother's Bagel. Oh my gosh, that bagel place is legit. Or maybe like in Chicago, Lou Malnati's Pizza. Like, yes, that is the one. Um, if you're up in San Jose, the Falafels Drive-In, right? So like, I'd have to narrow it down, pick one. I'd add my name, and then I'm going to give you a link, both in the announcement and on the week 5 assignment page, that's unique to this class. And you're going to drop a pin, add your name, add the place, give a paragraph about it, and what you're going to find is that suddenly it's this really robust resource that isn't a spreadsheet, but can actually be exported as a spreadsheet, which is cool. But it's a visual way to organize stuff based on a map, which is not a normal way that we tend to think about kind of Google Drive stuff. We tend to think about it like Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Sheets, maybe Google Drive, and you can add a PDF, end of story. But with a map, anything obviously with geography, but really anything historical where we have this, that, you can map that out and then link from one pin to another. You can link from a pin to a slide deck. Each pin on the map can have a series of photos. It can have links to a slide deck. It's incredibly powerful. And not just pins, you can customize the pins with colors, with icons, with custom icons. You can not just have a pin, you can have a line. So if we're following a path of wherever ended up going on horseback 400 years ago, you can draw that path. You can draw in rectangles and shade them in. It can be something fun like, hey, everyone, like, let's find some favorite places to eat. It can be, hey, we're going to this conference in Palm Springs at the Spring Q conference. Drop in your favorite restaurant on a pin, and then we can share that map out, and then everyone will have their favorite restaurants. It could be like a really tactical thing, like if you switch into administration and you become a tech director, like I am now. I actually have a map just for infrastructure stuff on our main campus in Los Gatos. And so there's different layers, so I can turn on and off a whole layer of just conduit. So if I'm pulling in a vendor because, and this is a real thing, like rats chewed through and an entire building went offline, like no internet for all of third grade, fourth grade, and the business office. Um, I could actually just share a Google Drive file, which is a map, Google My Maps, share it with that vendor, and then Travis was able to be like, okay, cool, like I see where the conduit is here, and we're up and running much quicker than like, let me show you and walk you around, and then he'll relay it to his person who's actually going to kind of crawl underneath the building and try and track down why that building's offline. It's just like, here's the conduit. There's a whole other layer just of the boxes. They're called Christie boxes, like the big thing that says like PG&E. Um, the just like a big box that's underground. Each one of those is actually where you pull cables through, and so I know where all of those are for all of our data. So there's a layer in my maps just of all the Christie boxes. There's one just of all the conduit with paths. There's a whole nother kind of folders, how I kind of think about them, with all the pins of where all our network switches are. Think of those as like an extension cord, but for Ethernet cables. The more Wi-Fi you get, the more wired stuff you need. So anyway, like I've built out within about 10 feet in real life with a map, all in a Google My Map, what our whole thing looks like. So it can be like a really tactical thing. It can be like a fun collaborative, getting to know you thing. It can be connected to a number of different things. I mean, so many different math options, right? Like drawing different polygons and finding area or finding real life examples of what this or that looks like. I could go on and on and on. I could do like a whole hour presentation just on my maps. So you're going to do that, and if we get back to our assignment, you have the three things: Padlet, Google My Maps, Google Maps, and Google Slides, and that's part one. You're going to do those with kind of your student hat on, and then part two is you're going to do with your teacher hat on, actually build a lesson plan, a collaborative project. Just be sure you're going to write a lesson plan that you're checking all the boxes on the rubric. There are things that are easy to skip, like a sample student project. You want to make sure to get that because that ends up being 6 out of 30 points. So if you don't have a sample project, the highest you're getting is 24 out of 30. And you don't want to do that. So just double check all those things. That's assignment number 5. I talked about our discussion board. And then the rest you have, there's a whole bunch of tools, of digital tools, of collaborative tools, of like screencasting, of just a whole bunch of stuff of ways to collaborate online. Flip is going away, right? You're going to use Padlet as a replacement for that. Jamboard, Google Jamboard is going away. FigJam is the replacement for that. So there's links to both of those on this. If you've not played with those, this is the time to do that. And that's what you've got for week 5. If you have questions, reach out. Otherwise, happy week 5, everybody.